welcome. You join us today on Disruptive, where we're going to be discussing Juniper Networks Software Defined Security Network, or SDSN. With me today to discuss matters pertaining are Ken O'Kelly, Consulting Systems Engineer for Security from Juniper Networks, and Ian Parker, Senior Technical and Security Consultant from Axians Networks. Right. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So straight off the bat, first question to you, Ken. Security vendor market, it's a busy place right now. Some would argue that there's little differentiation between the vendors, whereas application control, unified threat management, intrusion prevention, they're all doing it. So what differentiates Juniper?
That's a good question, David. So I guess we looked at the market ourselves a few years ago and realised exactly the same thing, really, that there is very little differentiation between the various security vendors in the firewall space, certainly. So we looked at how Juniper could take a different approach to the security market, and this is where we sort of, I guess not a realization, but it's kind of very, very obvious, is that, you know, one of the things that everywhere connects to is the network. So why not use that network as your enforcement part, as part of your security posture, and not just the network, the wide area network as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Ian, most companies have a firewall, and we accept that this doesn't mitigate all risks. So what should a company be, or an organisation be, thinking about now to improve their security position?
Yeah, so a firewall used to be sufficient enough to deal with most threats, but that's from external threats, right? So, but now you have bring your own devices. So people are bringing laptops, they bring their own laptops, they're bringing their own mobile phones, their tablets, their devices, whatever they may be. And obviously we've got proliferation of IoT devices, Internet of Things devices. So all of these extra devices that are coming into your network, they all have to be secured. And there's no way to do it from a firewall perspective. And also you've got attackers being more advanced in their sophistication about their attacks and how they penetrate that particular network and attack it. So that majority of the time, they will give up trying to attack that perimeter firewall because they can't get through. It'll be the internal way to get into that via those devices that people bring from their home, for example.
I guess the thing that we get as well is that when we go and see a CISO, for example, they will say, well, I can put mobile device management, I can put agents on my laptops. You know, and I guess the thing to that is that, you know, you can put an agent mobile device management on, we get the latest software update to our particular laptop or device that breaks a mobile device management, then there's a vulnerability there.
But remember that the people can update their own devices.
Correct.
How many times if you've got a phone and you have software updates and you don't actually apply them, and of course the vulnerabilities are still there. So.
Yeah. And as you say, you know, right, we can put mobile device management and agents on our laptops and things, but we can't really do that to the IoT device, can we? To the, you know, the ones that we bought from a vendor somewhere that maybe has an old board that hasn't been patched and they're wide open and vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think to summarise there, businesses have got to start to think beyond that firewall, that perimeter device, because they've got to start to thinking the bigger threat is inside the network and being able to communicate from device to device.
And you think that's an area where the CISOs don't necessarily think about all the time internally?
Absolutely. So the first threat that I know of is the DDoS attack from the outside. The second threat is inside. So if, for example, somebody downloads some software and it's got a malicious file attached to that, or an email, phishing email, or things like that, when that comes inside the network on that device, as soon as that device is attached to the network, it can propagate internally, and the firewall's not going to stop that.
Thank you. Ken, I wanted to go back to something you just started to talk about.
Okay.
I've heard Juniper referencing network as your next security platform. Is that the definition of SDSN then?
It's part of the definition, I guess, yes. I mean, that is one of the things that we've said, and that's what we looked at with the SDSN when we started thinking about how we would build that, is looking at, you know, enabling the network to be your next security platform. And I suppose it's very, very apt, because as we were just kind of discussing there, is that the one thing all of these devices connect to is the network, really. So, you know, it's that network that you have to traverse that. And actually, do you know what? Malware has to traverse that network as well. So why not use that as a portion to get your data from, to do your analytics, and to do your enforcement. So yeah, I guess it is the definition really of SDSN.
Thank you. And just again, so Ian, so here I am, I'm a CISO, and my organisation has many different devices that are connecting to the network. So we're saying here that SDSN can improve my security posture?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the device has an address on that device, and if you're going through a particular firewall, that can have controls in place to stop you from going from one site to another, from one device to another, from one, you know, a device to a server, for example, in your network. But the host itself isn't necessarily secured. So if going back to my previous example, if that host was infected with some malware or some malicious file, then any propagation of that is not stopped. Whereas SDSN, what SDSN will allow you to do is when that device connects to in a network, in a generic network, it will connect to a switch. And in SDSN allows that device to be stopped at the switch rather than to propagate through the network.
Yeah, exactly that. And, you know, and if you think about it, you know, so you may put more and more firewalls throughout your network, but they're still creating sort of bubbles of protection, and you can only do that enforcement, as Ian is saying, basically, as you traverse that firewall. And you know, the difference of using the network is actually you can just stop that right at the edge where that user connects in.
It just seems so logical.
It does, yes,
to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about user intent.
Oh. Yes. Yeah, I suppose that's one of the other things in SDSN is around user intent. One of the other things, I guess, when we were talking to security professionals, you know, and going out to see organizations was around the way organizations have changed. The businesses and that will come to the security, maybe in the firewall administrator, and say, you know, I've got a bunch of users in site A, branch 1, whatever. I need them to access my sales order system. And you're going, okay, that's somebody has to go and look up a spreadsheet, you know, find out where their users are, find out what the group of users, their names, maybe their IP addresses on a subnet, you know, that kind of technical stuff. And actually that doesn't really wash today. What we need to look at it, and what we mean by user intent is actually why not describe a policy by, you know, site A, group of users, B, application there. And then that means we're pulling information from various resources around our network. So our CMDB system for the description of the application, the site maybe from the branch numbers from our firewalls, and the users maybe from our Active Directory, from an LDAP authentication mechanism, and actually build our policy that way. So we're looking at an abstraction away from our standard technical policy and actually moving to more of a type of business type of way of building your security policy.
It's sort of very similar to role-based job function, that kind of thing. You know, so
but
looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah. So you're extending that kind of a concept and actually building out more metadata and describing your application. So these are the only ports I want to allow. These are the secure ports. These are my management ports. So. And actually, even expanding that out a bit further is where that actually application is living. Is it in, you know, pre-production? Is it in development, user acceptance testing? Is it in our own data center, or is it out in the public cloud? And actually, how you change that metadata describes how that policy is, and it actually changes the way, it changes the intent of that policy, really.
Yeah, it's like anything in security. You can't protect anything unless you know what your information that you're trying to protect is, and where it sits.
Yeah, and you know, you might think, oh well, how am I going to get all that information? Actually, well, that information is readily accessible, really, in most organizations. Most organizations maybe have taken on some sort of virtualization platform. In that virtualization platform is a list of all those virtual machines. Policy Enforcer can connect to that virtualization platform and extract that information and use it, and then you've got the starting point to build that database, that information that you need to build the intent policy.
So we're moving here towards automation. It sounds to me, I'm going to try and put this in the right way. So with the proliferation of devices, applications, there's no end of statistics telling us how many people are going to be connected to the internet in X number of years. There was also a recent research paper that said there's going to be 2 million security personnel shortage by 2019. So here I am again. I'm in an organisation. I'm head of the security, network security. I don't have a security team. I don't have someone monitoring my network. So how can I ensure that my network's being protected in real time then?
Well, I suppose going back to what you were saying there, actually, about the shortage of security personnel. I mean, how you ensuring is protected is one of the things. Is actually, the security personnel professional. He's sitting there with him, and might have a SIEM. He might have a security event management. He may have another vendor's product, another vendor, and all these products are feeding him information on dashboards and reports. And he's got to, he sees a threat on one dashboard. He's got to maybe go to another team and another person to basically get them to action that particular, remediation on a laptop or whatever it might be. That guy is running around the place like, maybe even like a headless chicken, let's hope not, but, trying to go around and actually address that thing. And actually, if there is that shortage, that means you can't build up that entire security team to have enough people to do that. So this is where you need the automation of actually, let's pull in that information sources, those threats from the various different products, pull them in and use that in an automated fashion that we can actually either produce some machine learning or deep learning across that information, and then use that then to enforce policy across the network automatically. So that guy, that security professional, is actually doing the job you hired him, which is actually looking at the security of the network and building security policies, and rather than running around and firefighting, basically.
I mean, to add to that, I mean, it's Ken gave an example there about somebody monitoring systems. There are businesses out there that, some vertical markets such as industrial engineering, manufacturing, those kind of industries that do not have people monitoring the network actively, and they don't have a security SIEM, an event management system or anything like that. So they have no idea what's going on in their network from an attack threat perspective, vulnerabilities, nothing, no visibility at all. So the visibility is key in this instance. Having said that, if they haven't got visibility and they can't see what's going on, they need something to almost do that for them, do that protection for them transparently and automatically without having to worry about that. So that's what SDSN can give you.
So in terms of, my machine's just gone off, here we go. In terms of automation, SDSN, it provides that. It's enabling an organisation to have visibility, some control over their security without necessarily having the personnel. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it frees that personnel up to do the more important tasks of security. Right. So as you said, the shortage there means you're not going to have the ability to go out and just hire loads of people because it's just not going to be there. No. So you need to make sure that when you hire somebody in, he's got the tools and he's actually able to use those tools in an automated fashion, but it frees him up to do the more important jobs, that he's doing instead of firefighting around the network.
Yeah, because it is relevant even to big security teams as well, because, security is becoming quite an in-depth granular subject nowadays, and is getting bigger and bigger all the time, and more unpredictable. So these security personnel need time, and they need analysis periods of time to actually look at what's going on in their network, and those mitigation elements, if they can automate those, that makes their job a lot easier.
Yeah.
So Ken, SDSN, it's a Juniper brand. So I have to ask really, is it only for Juniper estate or is it more open standards?
I mean, one of the other founding principles of SDSN from Juniper was that we wanted to be open. Juniper's always been around open standards, so we took that same philosophy through to the SDSN, and with the policy enforcer, which is one of the key components of SDSN, is that there is a set of APIs there that are published out that any vendor on the market can use to write information into the SDSN system, so they can integrate in. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is, I guess, you're not going to have maybe everybody having a Juniper network. So, we'll work with third-party wireless and third-party network vendors, even third-party routing vendors as well. So, we want to open this up to be completely agnostic, not just to Juniper networking equipment, but also to third-party networking equipment as well.
Okay. Ian, you and I have spoken before in respect to having disparate sites. So how does the SDSN mitigate against sort of one site having an issue and then the other sites being protected against that particular issue?
Well, SDSN has a very powerful component. It has a cloud threat intelligence system, so that basically if a company had multiple sites or multiple offices around the world, for example, on a global side of things, and they all had this SDSN solution. Any threats that happen or any sort of exploitation of attacks or whatever happens from a negative point of view at a particular site, that will be fed up to that threat intelligence in the cloud effectively, and then the other sites will have visibility of that, and their estate and their network will have visibility of that as well.
I mean, I agree, yeah. So, you know, that's one of the key things here is the threat intelligence sharing, the ability to enforce policy. I mean, with the key components of SDSN is able to touch all the branch sites. So if you do get a threat, as Ian said, that it's enacted across all the sites automatically and seamlessly as well. So you get that protection across your entire estate. And actually, it doesn't matter whether that is actually the branch network or into the public cloud as well. So the cloud infrastructures, you can extend that exact same threat prevention that Ian talked about and threat intelligence sharing to your cloud infrastructure as well. So we're not just talking about what's in your branch network, your data center, we're all talking about public cloud.
And to expand on that, it's not just the company, obviously. So if they've got multiple sites and they have this solution, they're able to use that facility. Having said that, so is everybody else. Multiple other companies or businesses that have that particular solution would also have that facility to be able to get to. So for what I'm trying to say is that if they have a threat or an exploitation that is unique to that particular site, the other people or other users of SDSN has the benefit as the threat engine will learn that and understand it, and then feed that down to the other networks for the other businesses as well. So it's quite advantageous from that perspective.
Yeah. We are just about out of time. So in summary, I would say so SDSN is a serious consideration for any organisation trying to improve its security posture.
I would agree. Yeah, certainly. I mean, you know, it changes the dynamic really. We're moving from network security to building secure networks really, and that's kind of the thing I would say is like, you know, if we build our network securely from the start, you know, network security will just be part of that. It's giving us a holistic view of our security and enforcement across our network.
Okay, I made some notes here earlier. So I said it is pervasive,
yep.
Not persuasive. Pervasive,
yes, pervasive, yes.
Pervasive. Software and cloud defined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Automated. Yes. Yep. User intent. We've gone through user intent, so we know what that means. Open and standardised. So I think that's been a really interesting discussion. There is clearly a lot more we could talk about, but sadly not today. So thank you. This has been an Axians Network production on Disruptive. My name is David 18, and I look forward to seeing you again.